Hi everybody, welcome to a new video. My name is Silke and today I'm going to talk to you about the books I read in the month of November. November was quite a difficult month because I was very sick during the first 2 weeks of November, and I'm still recovering from the disease. I had. That sounds really bad, but I had a kind of flu, almost an infection of my lungs. So I had to take a lot of rest, a lot of time off work. I slept a lot. I had a lot of fever, but the moments that I was clear enough to think, my resting points were automatically books. So I have, to be honest, 14 books to talk about. It's the most I have read in a month in the past 4 or 5 years. I honestly think I never read 14 books in a month, but this month I did, and that's what really bumped up my Goodreads goal because suddenly I am nearing 100 books. But let's dive right into 14 books I have to talk about. The first book I read was Relight My Fire by, and I am holding my app, my Goodreads app, to see the names of the authors. Joanna Bouluri, if I'm correct. This book hasn't been published yet. I'm not quite sure. If it is published already, I will put the date up here. It's a story about a married couple who had a child and whose sex life is kind of dead. They're not having a lot of intercourse anymore. There isn't any fire crackling between them anymore. The passion has gone to sleep. And so they're going into relationship counseling with this very eccentric counselor who brings them back up to speed, who gives them really hot hot exercises to perform and to really talk about what they desire, what they need in the bedroom. I absolutely loved this book. I gave it 4 stars. Later, after I finished it, I found out it's actually a sequel to the first book, The List, but you could perfectly read it apart because I didn't even know it was a sequel, and you don't know why you're reading that it's a sequel. I absolutely adored it. It was funny, but it was also very, very sexy. As a married woman myself, I kind of thought there were some really fun exercises given by the counselor that you could actually really put into practice in your daily life. So I actually really enjoyed it, really loved the very hot sex scenes, but I also loved the deeper meaning of the story. It wasn't all just about sex. It was about a long-lasting relationship, having children, the impact it has on your daily life. I actually really, really enjoyed it and would highly recommend if you're not afraid of some very, very hot sex scenes in a book. After that, I read 3 books that are actually, I read it as 3 books, but I think they will be published also as one whole book. And I'm talking about The Little Book Cafe by Georgia Hill. It are 3 books because it's Emma's story, checking again, Tasha's story, and Amy's story. So I read it really in 3 different books. But I saw that it might be published as The Little Book Cafe, just in one omnibus. Now there's just 3 novellas telling the story of 3 friends. And I didn't love it. It's about this little quaint English village where there's a book cafe, a bookshop that also has literary classes, has a little cafe on it where you can read a book and drink some tea. And it's about 3 friends that live in the village and have their own problems in life. The first book is Tasha's story, and I really disliked it because I hated the main character, Tash. She was very selfish, very self-absorbed, and I thought she was asking for the trouble she created. I gave that installment of the series 2 stars. The second installment was Emma's story, and Emma is this fun, book-loving girl who never got all the chances she wanted at school, and she wants to take a re-chance with a literary course. She has a long-lasting relationship that's also a bit slacking, so she is asking herself the question, is this all that life has to offer me? I really enjoyed that part of the story more because Emma was such a likable character. She fills up a room. She's very spirited. She's a very talkative girl. So yeah, I just enjoyed her story more. I gave it 4 stars. And the last installment of the story was Amy's story, and actually I was kind of surprised that I enjoyed that part of the story the most, because Amy was, in the first installments of the series, a very silent, very drawn back girl, but soon that seems that when you read her story, that's just a facade she's holding up. She's very clever, she's very driven, she's very passionate, she loves books, she loves her bookstore, she does all these lovely activities in the bookstore, and she falls, of course, madly in love. And I really liked her storyline, so I gave it 3 stars. Um, if you will be following my channel for a longer time, you will see that I really like to read contemporary novels or chick lit set in English villages, and I thought this one it wasn't up to the standard that I'm used to. So the overall series, I would give it 2.5 stars, and I wouldn't very highly recommend it. And then we were the second week of November, and for me, that is the kickoff of my Christmas reading season. And the first book I read was Watch for Me at Christmas by Christy Ferry. It's a series. It's a part of a series, but I haven't read the first installment of the series. But it is about this old English manor where it's not really time travel. It's a split timeline is happening. You can see in the past and you can see in the future, and it's kind of like the inhabitants of that manor are, yeah, looking at themselves in the past. It's very hard to explain, and I don't want to give a lot away, although to be quite fair, the synopsis of the book gives it all away. But I really liked it. I gave it 3.5 stars, I think. It was very quaint. There was a lot of history, because there's a lot of looking at the 18th century, how Christmas was celebrated in the 18th century, and I loved that part of the story. I felt also drawn to the whole manor setting and the time split that was happening. So for me, as a time split lover, I really liked it. It was a short novella, but it was ideal to get me in that first Christmas spirit. Even better was the book I read after that, and it was One Magical Christmas by Bernie Stevens, and I absolutely loved that. That book just read like a Hallmark movie. I gave it 4 stars, and I adored it. It's about a girl who runs into a boy the day of her sister's wedding, and he keeps on playing in her head, and he keeps on thinking about her, and then they go look for each other, and eventually they fall in love. But Nick, the boy in question, has a big dark secret that he has to tell her before Christmas Eve. I'm not gonna say more, but if you read the synopsis of the book, it's quite clear what his secret is. But it was a book that should be a Hallmark movie. It had everything. It has reindeers, it has elves, it has Santa Claus, it has magic, it has love, it has really funny scenes, and it has a very strong heroine, because I really liked the heroine in the story. She was a girl I would like to drink a pint with, so I really enjoyed that. After that, I needed a break from all the holiday cheer, and I read Little Girl Gone from Stephen Etcher. If you don't follow my Dutch channel, you might not know that I am not a thriller reader. I don't like it. The reason I don't like it is because most of the time I can predict how a story is going to end, the whole who has done it case. But in this case, I couldn't, and I really enjoyed the premise. The book tells the story of a girl that went missing the moment her mom parks in a parking station, and she goes to get the ticket. She's just going to pay. She has her back turned for like 3 minutes, which is too long, obviously, but it happens, and the girl is gone. And you follow the story through the eyes of the mother, who has some who had some problems in the past, and you follow it through the eyes of the dad, who is actually a police officer, who is put off the case because it's about his own daughter. I was really intrigued by this concept, and I was really into the story. And then at the end, and I just need to mention this, although it might be a spoiler, it just fell flat. You couldn't predict who had done it, because it was somebody who had not emerged in the whole entire book. It just didn't make any sense. Well, it just didn't make any sense. I really disliked it. After that, I really needed some holiday cheer again, so I read A Christmas Cafe at Seashell Cove by Karen Clark. Earlier this year, I read The Bakery at Seashell Cove and The Cafe at Seashell Cove, and this was a third installment following The Third Friend. I have already mentioned in my reviews from the first two installments that I have very mixed feelings about this series, and again I have this with this too. In this installment, we follow the third friend, who is actually a little bit of a wild at heart girl. She's run free. She has no she does some interior design, but she really doesn't have a steady job. She doesn't have a steady relationship. She's just not ready to grow up, and everybody is telling her to grow up. And then she saves a boy from the ice cold waters of the sea. She meets his dad, and pretty obviously there's gonna be some kind of attraction. What I really disliked about this book was how the main characters had no chemistry whatsoever. I didn't feel the connection. I didn't feel that burning passion that was described. They just felt flat to me. I didn't like the male lead because he was completely a mama's boy, a sissy. He couldn't make up his own mind. Everything was about his mother and not making his mother angry, so that kind of annoyed me a lot. And I didn't like all the it was very, yeah. In this book, the girl doesn't save herself, she comes to get saved. After that, I read some, because these were all arcs I had, I actually read some physical copies I already had. My TBR jar pick of the month was Without Merit from Colleen Hoover. I am an absolute Colleen Hoover lover. I have my own Colleen Hoover shelf up here. I read everything. I would read her grocery shopping list if it was necessary. But this, I gave it 2 stars. This was a complete mess. I was reading this, and the only thing I could think was, I hope she was high while writing this. This was so bad. And I think it's because Colleen wanted to do too much with this book. It's about a dysfunctional family where the mother has agoraphobia. It's about dad who married the nurse of the mother. It's about a girl who has suicide, who tries to commit suicide. It's about a sister who likes dying guys and giving them wonderful last days. It's about the Syrian crisis of refugees. It is so much, and at the same time it is nothing. There's almost no plot. I don't know what this is about. It just feels like one big messy book. I really didn't like it, and I'm so sorry about that, because I love Colleen Hoover, and I really hope her next book will be better, because this one I just truly hated. The next book I read was Sea Witch, and this book is by Sarah Henning, and it's just the blurb is, before she took the Little Mermaid's voice, she gave up her own heart. And I'm thinking about doing a review about this book, because I have a lot to say about it. I gave it 3 stars, but this book just really messed with my mind. I didn't know if I hated it. I didn't know if I loved it. To be honest, the last 70 pages or so are actually completely brilliant. I would give that 4 stars, and the first part I would give 2 stars, so I gave it, 3 stars. But I will try to film a full review of this book, and else I will link my review of this below, so you can check it out. The next book I read was von Lauren Graham, Talking as Loud as I Can. This is an autobiography, not really. This is, I think, a collection of short essays about her life from Gilmore Girls to Gilmore Girls and everything in between. I gave it 3 stars. I wasn't blown away by it, and for some reason I thought this would be a lot funnier. And it was a book that I read and I was like, yeah, I've read it and that's it. There wasn't an essay that stood out that made an impact on my life. I didn't laugh out loud while reading it. It wasn't bad, it wasn't good. It was just like lukewarm tea. It's still good, but it doesn't satisfy my needs. So this, I read it. After that, I read What If It's Us from Becky Albertalli and Adam Silvera. People might know or might not know that I am a huge Adam Silvera fan, and I was really looking forward to this book because it's a combination of Adam Silvera with Becky Albertalli, and well, Becky is this happy joy, person. And Adam is, in my opinion, more dark, more sinister. And I was really interested to see what those two would bring up together. I honestly have to say that I think it was very clear who wrote which chapters. But that didn't take away any more of my enjoyment, because I really liked the dark side, and I liked that Becky made it all goody goody, happy happy. Also thinking about filming a review about this. I still have to write my review about this, but I loved it. I loved it almost as much as I love all of Adam's books. I gave it a 4 because I hated the ending. I really hated the ending, but that's just me. I don't like open endings, and this has an open ending, and I don't like filling in the blanks for myself. I just want a wrapped up story that leaves me happy and satisfied. And yeah, here you could go multiple ways, but it's not a bad thing. It's just me who can't handle open endings. Then, as the last book of the month, I went back to, sorry that I'm looking down, but I'm trying to put this up. I am going back to Christmas yearly books, and I read A Gift from the Comfort Food Cafe by Debbie Johnson. Also, a book that is part of a series, and sometimes you really felt that you were missing out on some inside intel, but overall it wasn't really necessary to read the rest of the series. It's about a single mom with a 4-year-old little boy that is used to running away when things get hard, and this time she ran to this little quaint village in the English countryside where there's a food cafe in a little community where everybody takes care of everybody. And she needs to connect, find friends, and open up her heart. And of course, it's almost Christmas, and she starts having butterflies for this guy in the village. It's a very, very, 12 in a dozen kind of book, but I really enjoyed it. I kind of liked it. There were some darker topics in it. There was abuse, verbal abuse. There was also sickness, and I actually liked it. It wasn't just all fluffy, Christmassy cheer, but it went a little deep, and I really enjoyed it. So that were the 14 books I read this month. This was a lot of books. I hope you enjoyed this first video. It's a very long one. I promise the next ones will be shorter, and I'll see you. Bye!